I'm back from Mobile, Alabama, and that means it's time for a mock draft. I'm Jeremy Greene of ESPN Radio Asheville and the Sportsocracy. We're going to have a little douche flute. We're going to have a little monster who happily brings you this here program, along with DraftKings and Ingles Markets, along with Clarissa Sells, WNC.com. We're going to have a little douche flute. We're going to talk a little draft prospects. We're going to have a good time. This is the post-Senior Bowl mock draft from me and the Sportsocracy.com. We start at number 1, Chicago Bears. This is a team that I talked about a lot while I was in Mobile, and I got a pretty good consensus. They're going to take a quarterback, and that quarterback is going to be USC quarterback Caleb Williams. While we go through this, I will be using NFLDraftBuzz.com. I think they put things together in a really nice way, and frankly, I don't have the manpower to do it. So they do good work. Why not give them a little love as well? Look, I'm not a huge fan of Caleb Williams. I haven't been the entire time. It's not that I don't think he can be a good quarterback. I'm not sure he's a great quarterback. 6'1", 215 pounds. I think he's fast enough. He's a mobile quarterback, but I don't know that he's going to blow anybody away with that. I think Drake Maye is more athletic. I think Jayden Daniels is more athletic. And the thing about Caleb is I'm afraid that teams are going to be afraid to not take him because he's hyped as this otherworldly prospect in the vein of a Trevor Lawrence. I'm just not sure he's that. And that brings him in, I think, already down 3, that's kind of a pain in the ass because there's an expectation that you're going to just jettison Justin Fields and Caleb Williams is going to come in here and be this all-world quarterback. I'm not sure that's the case. I do think he has a really high-level deep ball arm. That is one of the biggest pros for me when I go through his tape is that he does have a really, really good deep ball arm. And that's going to shine through in the tape. I think it would be nice coming into Chicago because you already have DJ Moore. You already have Cole Kmet. You already have a couple solid running backs in my estimation. Look, I don't think Chicago is that far away. This is a good team. It's just a good team that's had a problem at quarterback for about as long as you can remember. I do believe Justin Fields will fetch them a second-round pick with a conditional pick. So at number 1, I do have them taking Caleb Williams, and when I do the Bears 3-round mock draft, I'll tell you what that trade looks like, exactly what they get back, and who that could potentially be, and it's probably not who you think. Atlanta doesn't make as much sense as they did a few weeks ago, but there is another landing spot that makes all the sense in the world. And we'll talk about that next week when I unveil the 3-round mock drafts for each individual team. That takes us to number 2, the Washington Commanders. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I'm not dead sold this is a quarterback. I had a lot of discussions at the Senior Bowl about what Washington could do, what they should do, and who they could possibly do it with. And there was one thing that kept ringing true that people kept telling me, which was the Raiders are really in the hands of Antonio Pierce, and Antonio Pierce absolutely loves one player. Well, picking at 13, you have absolutely no shot of getting to that player, so I have them working out a trade. That trade would involve the number 13 pick in this draft. Washington fans, if you think I'm out of my mind, just give me a little platitude and maybe hear what that turns into before you call me a stark raving lunatic. The Raiders give up 13 in this draft. They give up their second-round pick and their third-round pick. Next year, they give up a 1 and a 2. Yes, it's a lot, but if you look at that Raider roster, if they just had a quarterback that they really believed in, I think they would be knocking on the door of playoff contention. And like I said, it was a huge narrative around Mobile. I heard it a lot of times. So I have the Raiders trading up to number 2, and with that pick, they take Jayden Daniels, quarterback out of LSU. This is your reigning Heisman Trophy winner. Ideal size, 6'4", 210, really fast, really good runner. He's my number 1 quarterback in the class. Right now, he and Drake Maye are 1A, 1B. I'm not 100% sure which one is going to end up being the one when this is all said and done. I'm really reserving the right to save that declaration until I come back from the Combine in Indianapolis in a few weeks. I love Jayden Daniels. I've loved Jayden Daniels since he was at Arizona State. Antonio Pierce was at Arizona State with him, and this is just a narrative. Look, I'm seeing a lot of mock drafts that look exactly the same. Anytime in all the years I've been doing this that's been the case, it never goes that way. There's always something that will throw you off. And to me, that move is the Raiders moving up here to get Jayden Daniels to pair with Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers. I do think they will bring back Josh Jacobs. And yes, it hurts to give up that draft capital. I understand that. But where you're at right now with Farva and Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't think that gives you a chance to win. And I'm not so sure that Antonio Pierce would have taken this job if you hadn't given him some assurances that he would be able to do what it is that he wants to do to mold this roster. The knocks on Jayden Daniels, he is a little thin. He is a little thin. That is a kind of gimmicky offense, and the best year he ever had was with Brian Kelly this last year at LSU. For me, that's not really a knock. The NFL is becoming gimmicky. You're seeing a lot of elements of the college game that are playing into the NFL. 5 years ago, Jayden Daniels probably would not have been a first-round pick. 20 years ago, he might not have been picked at all. The NFL's changing. And the fact that he is a little thin, well, quarterbacks never get hit. So it's just not that big of a deal. I'm curious if Jayden runs, which I don't think he will. I'm curious what that time would look like. I think it's sub 4.5. Great deep ball thrower. I love the arm. You do have to put the weapons around him, I think, for him to succeed at the highest level, but that's true with anybody, and the Raiders are a perfect fit. Number 2 to the Las Vegas Raiders, Jayden Daniels, quarterback out of LSU. That takes us to number 3, New England Patriots, and, well, the beauty of being New England is that you just get to sit back and wait for whatever falls in your lap. They don't have to trade up. They don't have to do anything because there are 3 quarterbacks in this class. And I have them getting what might be the best in this class. I'm just not sure that he doesn't have the lowest ceiling. Number 3 to the New England Patriots, Drake Maye, quarterback out of North Carolina. 6'4", 230, hypermobile. I think he is every bit as fast as Jayden Daniels and maybe faster than Caleb Williams, and he has the ideal build. Caleb Williams is a little short. Jayden Daniels is a little thin. Drake Maye is just right. Now, that's the positive. I think he's got a great ability to step up in the pocket. He's got a really good arm. Now here's what scares me. And it's what scares me about Caleb Williams, too. The bad is really bad. If you go back and watch the Miami tape, you'll fall in love with Drake Maye and think he's the best quarterback in the class. If you go back and watch the NC State tape, you'll think he's not a first-round pick. I've seen players like this before. It's one of two things. They're either not as good of a prospect as we think they are, or they're poorly coached. And I think Drake Maye falls into the latter. He only had one really high-level weapon at North Carolina. That was Tez Walker, who, after seeing him in Mobile, I see the problem with what you had there because Tez doesn't have the best hands. You also only had him for half of the season. That, to me, is what led to some regression from Drake Maye. I'm going back to the first-year tape and really seeing the high side there. I had him as the number 1 quarterback coming into this year. I'm not going to push him down too far for what we saw. If you're looking for knocks, it's the bad is just the catastrophic plays, the interceptions that you just can't throw. Alex Van Pelt, to me, I didn't love that hire for New England, but I think he would be a great fit with Drake Maye. He did play quarterback in this league. He has coached several really good quarterbacks in this league. And I think New England at this point is the best fit for Drake Maye. I don't love him in Carolina. He played at Carolina. I don't love him at Washington. I don't love him at to the Chicago Bears because you're coming in with the helmet scouting thing. You had Mitch Trubisky with the Bears. You have Sam Howell right now with Washington. I don't know that he's going to get a fair shake with either one of those teams because fans are a little bit fickle. I love him falling to New England. Now, you're going to have to find some weapons because they are outside of Demario Douglas, really bereft of those. You have Ramondre Stevenson, but you just don't have a lot of talent in the receiving core. I will address that later in my 3-round mock draft for the New England Patriots, which will be out next week. Number 3, New England Patriots, Drake Maye. This is really where the draft begins for me because I don't see much of a path that you're not going to get 3 quarterbacks that go 1, 2, 3. There's just too many teams that need them. There's too big of a drop-off from number 1, 2, 3 to number 4. So, to me, the draft really starts in terms of not quarterbacks at number 4, and it only kind of starts there because I don't see any path that it's not Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver, Ohio State. Look, I love this kid. He is, as a matter of fact, he is the highest-rated wide receiver that I have ever graded. 6'4", 205. He's not going to run because he doesn't have to. But if he did, I think he would run somewhere in the high 4.3s. Super fluid, just got great hands. Some of the best hands I've ever seen. And the tape was intoxicating. He beat some of the best corners in the country like a kettle drum. Would come in and immediately be the number one weapon that Kyler Murray has needed. I'm going to level. He's my number one player in the class, and it's not really all that close. None of the quarterbacks are really in his ballpark. For me, there are 4 to 5 no doubt franchise players in this draft. 2 of them play receiver. 1 of them plays tight end. 1 of them plays offensive tackle. Marvin Harrison is far and away the best of the 3. And I think he'd be an ideal fit for Arizona. You look at what they're trying to do. You have a second first-round pick. You just take the best player on the board, and this just so happens to be a position of need. I think him and Kyler Murray would form just an epic tandem that would really put Arizona right on the outside of playoff contention. Look, the NFC's not all that good, and a lot of these teams are not getting better. They're getting worse. Yes, you have Philadelphia that had a weird offensive coordinator hire that I don't love that has all the talent. Well, Arizona beat them last year. And I'm not saying that that's in a vacuum that they're better than Philadelphia. I'm just saying this is a scrappy team that I think found out a lot of what they had last year. They've got some money this year. They have a lot of draft capital. Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver out of Ohio State at number 4, would be the perfect addition to this team. I don't do this very often. Please subscribe to the channel. We're going to have to play some ads through this. It's how we get paid. In addition to our sponsors, Ingles Markets, DraftKings, ClarissaSellsWNC.com, and the Nasty Beast from Monster Brewing Company. But subscribe to the channel. We do Draftman stuff the entire year. I just came back from the Senior Bowl. I will be going to the Combine. I don't think I'll be going to the draft this year. Detroit's not really a city I want to vacation in. And the draft it's not so much that I would be working as I want to go. So I don't think I'll be making the journey to Detroit this year. I do want to go to the draft eventually. But for me, doing a live stream here in this nice, comfortable studio is much more beneficial. So we'll keep on here at number 5. This is another spot that I have one player for this team, and the hire of Greg Roman just makes it, to me, all the more likely. You got the LA Chargers here at number 5, and that pick, Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia. This is the best tight end prospect I have ever seen. He might be the best running back for the Los Angeles Chargers off the jump. He's just so damn good at everything. Big body, 6'4", 240. He's not a great blocker. He's a good blocker. He's a good enough blocker, and he's such a threat. I think he opens up a lot with Keenan Allen. I think he opens up a lot with Mike Williams. Might help you get something out of Quentin Johnston, who you took in the first round last year, and Josh Palmer, who I still maintain is one of the best receivers on this team. This is a franchise player that really fits what Jim Harbaugh wants to do. This is a Jim Harbaugh kind of player because it changes so much of what you can do offensively. I still think they need to add a running back at some point in the first 2 days. Running back is a terrible position in this draft. I don't think one will go in the first 2 rounds. I think it starts in the beginning of the 3rd round. But Brock Bowers is a player that I know comes in right away. He plays immediately. I toyed with the idea of Joe Alt because I think he is so good, but I can't bypass Brock Bowers. You watch the tape on him at Georgia. It was very obvious that he's the most talented player. Yes, he's surrounded by a lot of talent, but no, he didn't have the best quarterback. And it just shined through how much better Georgia was with him on the field than when he ultimately was off of the field. And I think he's the second best player in this draft. I have him at 2 overall behind Marvin Harrison Jr. and just ahead of Joe Alt, the offensive tackle from Notre Dame. So at number 5 to the LA Chargers, Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia. That brings us to number 6, the New York Giants. And this is the first spot that I really had to think about what I wanted to do. Because to me, there are 2 completely different ways of thinking about the New York Giants. Either I can try to fortify the line, which I already have a first-rounder invested in Andrew Thomas. I already have a first-rounder invested in Evan Neal. I saw enough guys in Mobile that I think are going to be really, really good at the NFL level playing offensive line. I don't think I have to do that right now, but there is another weapon that I think can prop up Daniel Jones because you're just locked into it. There's nothing you can do about it. He's going to be your quarterback, and that's just the way that it is. So at number 6, I'm taking one of the best players on the board. He is my number 5 overall, Malik Nabers, wide receiver out of LSU. Look, there are people that like him better than me, and it's not that I dislike him. My only fear with him is that he doesn't have the prototypical size. I think he could end up playing more out of the slot as a move-around piece just because he is very multifaceted. He's very talented. He's the number 1 wide receiver for the New York Giants off the drop. In most classes that I have ever graded, he would be the number 1 receiver on the board, and he's not here because of Marvin Harrison Jr., but I think he would be a really nice piece. He's a phenomenal route runner. He's a great deep threat. He's got really good hands. It's just he is just a receiver. He's not going to give you the blocking. He's not going to give you some of these other things. I don't need you to do that. That's a very old school way of looking at receivers. And to me, Malik Nabers is a very modern NFL kind of receiver. I could see him having almost Jamar Chase level upside. And then I look at the floor and I'm not sure his floor is not Devontae Smith. That's just how good he is, how smooth he is. And if I'm the New York Giants, I got to do something to salvage this Daniel Jones thing because I'm stuck with it for another year. There is absolutely nothing I can do about it. So I'm going to try to do that here at number 6 with Malik Nabers, the wide receiver out of LSU. That moves us into number 7 and another spot where I have a real honest-to-God thought in front of me. Do I take Rome Odunze, the wide receiver out of Washington, who it's not too early to take him. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking him. In Tennessee, I know I have another year of DeAndre Hopkins. I think I have enough out of a couple other pieces that I feel pretty good about a 3 and a 4. Treylon Burks, to me, is not a 2 in this league. He has not been as good as I thought he would be, but I think he can be a legit 3. So I'm looking to later in the draft. This is a super deep wide receiver draft, and I'm not sure that there's not just a little bit of a drop-off from Malik Nabers to Rome Odunze, and this guy's sitting on the board. I call this complimentary drafting, where I can take players that I've taken in the past and bring out the best in them. So I'm going to, at number 7, take Joe Alt, offensive tackle, Notre Dame. This dude is a friggin' house. 6'8", 315 pounds, elite pass block jump. The big difference between him and every other tackle in this draft class is that he comes in with the ability to do both. I think he will be a really good run blocker off the jump and an elite pass blocker. I think this kid has Joe Thomas level upside. That's what I see when I watch him on tape. I've loved him. He's a converted tight end, and it's really obvious that he's got really good feet. He's really light on his feet. He falls into that dancing bear category where you just look at a guy and go, damn, that guy can move. I love Joe Alt. I think he would be an ideal pick for the Tennessee Titans here. And some people, and I'm just going to go on a little tangent here for a second. Some people don't love really tall offensive tackles, and to me, that is so dumb. Do you realize how many great offensive tackles over the years have been super tall? Jordan Gross right here in my backyard as we're Panther affiliates. Anthony Munoz, Joe Thomas, who I referenced earlier. It's dumb to say that a guy can't do something just because he's so tall. A team is going to get Joe Alt. I believe it's going to be in the top 7 because I don't see a path that he falls past the Tennessee Titans. And you're going to have your franchise left tackle for 10 years. You add that to Peter Skoronski, you put Nick Petit-Frere back on the right side, and we're starting to get to a point where we have an offensive line that can hold up in front of Will Levis and give me an opportunity to really score points for new head coach Brian Callahan. Number 7, Tennessee Titans, Joe Alt, Notre Dame. This is where it got really, really difficult for me because there is not a necessarily natural fit for the team picking at 8, which is the Atlanta Falcons. So I looked at this, and maybe this is not the best way to mock draft. Maybe this is not the best. I just looked at it. What would I do? If I'm Atlanta, I have a new coach. There is no quarterback that I can take here and feel good about. There is not really an edge rusher that I think is worth this spot. Laiatu Latu was really good in Mobile. The injury history is going to be a problem for the vast majority of evaluators. So I can't put him that high. I don't think Dallas Turner is worth a pick this high. Not saying he's not good, just saying I don't think he's top 10 good. So I looked at what was left, and I looked at positions that Atlanta needed, and I found a player that I know exactly what I'm getting. At number 8, Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback out of Toledo. Some people are going to say this is too high. Some people are going to say I'm overreacting to what I saw at the Senior Bowl. I can't disagree with you vehemently enough. I had Quinyon Mitchell in the first round anyway. I thought he was that good coming into this. He's going to run just spectacularly in the 40. I don't know if he's going to go 4.35. I do easily see a path that he goes sub 4.4, and he was absolutely unbeatable in the position drills in Mobile. He was so good. He was so fluid. I think he's a starting number 1 corner in this league. You add him to A.J. Terrell. You take the young defensive pieces that this team already has. I like the hire of Raheem Morris more and more as I think about it. You do have to do something at quarterback, but I'm not forcing a quarterback here because Bo Nix nor Michael Penix deserves to go in the top 10, and JJ McCarthy doesn't either. We'll get to him in just a little bit. Quinyon Mitchell was the number 1 corner in this class. I had him at 2 going into the week. He passed Terrion Arnold for me just because I have never seen Terrion Arnold be as good as what I saw at the Senior Bowl, and this was against the best receivers in the country. I saw him lose 1 rep the entire week. It was because he fell down and Roman Wilson had to catch one behind his head because these quarterbacks were so terrified to throw the ball at him that even when he fell down, the pass was still not great. To me, he is now one of my top 10 players in this class. He is a no-doubter. He is a no-doubter number 1 corner in this class, and I think he would be a perfect selection for Atlanta. You save your draft capital, not trading up to get the quarterback. If the offer was there, I would be at least willing to listen. I am not so sold on any of these quarterbacks that I'm willing to pay what the Raiders paid to get up to 2 with Washington. Chicago's not going to move. New England's not going to move. The only one that's even possible is Washington. And I'm not paying that price to get up there. So at number 8, I'm taking Quinyon Mitchell, a player that I think has superstar written all over him. Cornerback out of Toledo. That brings me to number 9, and we will take a quick commercial break after every 10 picks, except the last 10, and then we'll go to 12, and we'll be done. Number 9 is the Chicago Bears again. This is another team that I really struggled with. What exactly is it that I want to do here? I considered Laiatu Latu, but I keep coming back to the medical. I'm just not sure teams are going to be comfortable taking him that high, even though I think he's worth a pick that high. There is another piece. It is something to prop up Caleb Williams, and he's just sitting here at 9, so I can't let him fall any further. It's a player that I really like. Rome Odunze, wide receiver, Washington. Perfect height, 6'3", 215, and he's just always open. I think he's got great hands. He has superstar potential. I've been on him all season long as I've been on Washington because I kept watching this team going, damn, they've got 3 top 100 wide receivers, and they've got a top 75 quarterback. Now, can I tell you that I didn't think they would possibly slip up at some point? No. I bet against them the second time with Oregon because I thought they would trade off that regular season conference championship matchup, and Washington surprised me slightly. I thought they were the best team in the country, but I didn't really believe in Kalen DeBoer. What I did believe in is Rome Odunze because I haven't seen anybody all year long that could actually legit contain him. I think he comes in as a number 1, and you would have a 1A, 1B with him and DJ Moore. DJ Moore can play out of the slot. You can do some gimmicky things with him. And I'm looking at that Chicago offense going, there's absolutely no reason that Caleb Williams should not be able to succeed in this. The defense was really good towards the end of the year. I still need to round some things off there, but with the second rounder that I gave up for Montez Sweat, I feel like I owe it to myself to really build up the offense, and that was my tiebreaker. That's why I'm taking Rome Odunze, wide receiver Washington, number 9, to the Chicago Bears. Number 10, my team. I am a lifelong New York Jets fan, and this is the first swerve that I have in the mock draft because Olu Fashanu is sitting here just waiting to be picked. But I'm not going to. I think the New York Jets are in love with one player. I saw this with my own eyes in Mobile that they were really locked in on the player that I'm getting ready to say. The question that I have is if he was on the board with Fashanu, would they be willing to move him ahead of Fashanu, I think they already have. I've heard some things that not everybody is as in love with Fashanu as I am, and I took that into account here. So I'm going to give my New York Jets the standout of the Senior Bowl. I now feel really confident that he can be a right tackle in this league. Left tackle, I'm not so sure. I'm not 100% sure. I have another plan for the Jets, which I will tell you in their 3-round mock draft. Number 10, Taliese Fuaga, tackle out of Oregon State. This kid was an absolute animal in Mobile, did himself a lot of favors, has a really nice technique at times. He lets people get into his body too often, but once they do, he's just such a bulldog that it doesn't really matter. I had some epic battles with Laiatu Latu. It was one of my favorite things to watch over the course of the week, and a lot of times you hear smoke and there's no fire. This is one time I can tell you definitively. There is smoke, there is fire. The New York Jets are interested, and here at number 10, I give them one of the best run blockers in this. As a matter of fact, it's not one of the best run blocker in this class, and a very adequate pass blocker that I think would give the right side of Aaron Rodgers a nice protection. You still have to figure out the left. I get that, but I have a plan for that, and it's not coming from me. It's coming directly from a source with the New York Jets, which, like I said, I'll get into later. Taliese Fuaga, number 10 to the New York Jets. There's your first 10. On the screen, you will see the 10 picks as I picked them, and we will take a quick commercial break right here. YouTube algorithm, got to get some ads. Do me a favor, sit through those while they're playing. Maybe click that subscribe button, click that like button so more people can see this, and continue with all of our Draft Miss coverage all season long. I'll be back momentarily. And we're back with picks 11 through 20 in the post-Senior Bowl mock draft from me, ESPN Radio Asheville's Jeremy Greene, and thesportsocracy.com. Number 11, this is a team that I've really struggled with, and I can't fathom that they're not going to re-sign Kirk Cousins, because if you're thinking you're going into this season with Bo Nix or Michael Penix as your quarterback, you're screwed before the season even starts. Now, the reason that you're screwed is because neither one of those are going to lead you in shootouts, and your defense was damn terrible for a lot of last year, and it was because there are no corners on this team. There's still a really solid corner on the board, and that's where I'm going for Minnesota. Number 11, Terrion Arnold, cornerback out of Alabama. I love this kid, and if it wasn't for how in love with Quinyon Mitchell I am, he would have been number 1. Willing in the run game, comes up. He's not going to be a liability there. I think he can play press man immediately. Zone is going to be a bit, I'm not going to say a work in progress, because I would still argue he's one of the best zone corners in this draft. At 6 foot, $195, stereotypical NFL cornerback size. The tape is really good. Everybody talked about Kool-Aid McKinstry all year, but every scout I knew was talking about Terrion Arnold and how he had been so good, and he was really working his way past Kool-Aid McKinstry. And I think he's an ideal fit for Minnesota. Minnesota's got a lot of work to do on that defense, and people are too worried about quarterback and not worried enough about you still have one of those. You have to re-sign him, and he's going to cost money. But if you're thinking you're going to waste the prime of Justin Jefferson with Bo Nix, I struggle to believe that. Number 11, to the Minnesota Vikings, Terrion Arnold, cornerback out of Alabama. Number 12, the Denver Broncos. This is one of those fits, and I try not to do this, where I just fall so in love with a player going to a certain spot that I can't really get away from this being what it is. Laiatu Latu was a consideration here. I think Denver really needs another pass rusher that can consistently get home. I know they like Baron Browning and the other pieces that they have. I don't think you have a no-doubt winner. I don't know that you have a no-doubt every down guy. I think you got 2 pass rush specialists, and you really need somebody that can come in and play every single down, which is what I think you get out of another Alabama guy, Dallas Turner, edge, Alabama. I'm going to be honest about Turner. I think the biggest knock on him is that he played with Will Anderson, and he never looked as good as Will Anderson. Well, if you saw what he did year 1 with the Houston Texans, that's not really a slight. The kid was damn phenomenal this year, and I just have Turner a step behind that. He's 6'4", roughly 240 pounds. I think he'll come in as a phenomenal pass rusher right now. I greatly prefer him as a stand-up 3-4 outside linebacker, which is what Denver would make him. And I can't get away from this fit. The knock on him is how well is he going to hold up against the run? Some of the tape that I watched, yeah, there were plays where he got washed out a little bit, but it's better than damn near anybody else in this class, and it's about as good as Will Anderson was last year. So I just don't worry about that much. I think this kid's really good, really well-rounded, but in this class, he doesn't make it into the top 10 and would be a perfect fit for Denver at number 12. They're another team. I don't know what you're going to do at quarterback. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be Russell Wilson. It may be Jarrett Stidham. I don't think Bo Nix or Michael Penix is that much of an improvement if you have to take them at 12. Now, you orchestrate something later in the draft if one of them falls. They do. And you can find a way to get one of those guys. More power to you. I'm all the way in for that because then the cost is not so extravagant to get a mediocre quarterback. You already found that out the hard way when you traded for Russell Wilson. Number 12, Dallas Turner to the Denver Broncos. 13, this is where Washington falls. And, if you thought I was crazy, I asked you just give me a little platitude. This is the reason I keep thinking that Washington's going to trade down. Sam Howell is not a sunk cost at quarterback. That team was not nearly good enough to get a real evaluation on him in year one. Look, you may say I'm biased because we covered him at North Carolina and I know the kid. I get every bit of that, but watch the tape. The good is there. All right, the good in the worst quarterback class I've ever seen, which was his and Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, Matt Corral, and Desmond Ridder. He's clearly the best of the five to me. And if you don't believe that, ask yourself this question. If you took Kenny Pickett and put him in Washington and took Sam Howell and put him in Pittsburgh, do you not think Pittsburgh would be better than they are currently? Because I do, and I feel pretty damn sure of it. Because they have a real-life offensive line. The weapons, I love Terry McLaurin. I like Jahan Dotson. I've never been huge on Curtis Samuel. Running backs, I really like Brian Robinson. There ain't much else there. Logan Thomas couldn't block me. So you put a guy behind a mediocre offensive line and just basically threw him to the wolves, which is, to me, why Eric Bieniemy is having to run back to Kansas City to get a job, because I ain't the only one that saw that. So here at number 13 with the trade back, Olu Fashanu, offensive tackle, Penn State. I've heard not every team loves him as much as I do. He's a no-doubt left tackle in this league to me. Would come in as your starter immediately. I think he improves your offensive line immediately. And I just look at the value there. You add all the pieces from the Raiders. You add all of the things that will help in building this roster because you need a lot of help on defense. And then you have Olu Fashanu, who I could argue is worth a top 5 pick that falls right in your lap at 13. I think as we go down the rabbit hole, Washington's not going to be able to resist that. He's a great pass blocker right now. 6'6", 320 pounds, dancing bear. He's a great pass blocker right now. He is going to struggle a little bit in the running game to start, but I have a path for that, and you will see that in the Washington Commanders 3-round mock draft that I'll be putting out next week. Olu Fashanu, number 13 to the Washington Commanders in what is my favorite draft class I think I've ever put together in a mock draft like this. Number 14, New Orleans Saints. This is another team that was kind of hard for me to deal with because they have several needs, and I would love to have a defensive tackle here. I'm just not sure there's one that really fits, and I'm not sure that there's one that will pair well with Brian Breeze, who you took last year. So I'm going to fill another need with a player that I am absolutely drunk in love on, Jared Verse, edge rusher, Florida State. There are a lot of people that think he's the number one edge in this class, and I don't think he's far off. He was dominant at Florida State. Yes, he had Patrick Turner on the other side. I get that. But if you watch, and look, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a lifelong Florida State fan. There is a Deion Sanders signed helmet behind my head right now. I love Jared Verse. I think you put him on the opposite side of Cam Jordan to start. They really wanted Myles Murphy last year before Cincinnati sniped him on him. Jared Verse is exponentially better than Myles Murphy. If you want a clone of Myles Murphy, you can take Chop Robinson in the second round. That's not the way I want to go because I can't really find the path where I'm going to take a better player here to justify the drop in pass rusher to Chop Robinson, who I like. He's just not going to be a 3-down guy off the jump. I need a no-doubt hit after the, I will say, uncomfortable, awkward trade for Trevor Penning, where he has not been everything that he was sold to be. I need a win. I need a lockdown, no doubt. I think this kid's going to be Pro Bowl level or better, and the only player on the board that really speaks to that and can really do that is Jared Verse. Comes in as an amazing pass rusher off the jump, holds up against the run. I think he's a true 3-down defensive end. He could stand up, but I kind of look at him like I did Jermaine Johnson. Florida State recruits a very specific kind of edge, and I don't really like any of them standing up consistently. Can do it in spots, kind of like Jermaine Johnson does now. He's still listed as a linebacker with the Jets, but he's got his hand in the dirt very often. I love Jared Verse, and I think it'd be a home runs pick here at number 14 for the New Orleans Saints. 15, the Indianapolis Colts. This team doesn't need as much as I thought they did going into this year. One of the surprise teams of the year. And you do have Anthony Richardson coming back. I considered a wide receiver, but there's so damn many of those that I would rather wait and get a high-end value here with a guy that I really like. I feel like the fact he wasn't at the Senior Bowl, people are starting to forget about him. We almost universally had him as the number one guy at his position in the class coming into the Senior Bowl, and now he's just kind of been forgotten. Nate Wiggins, cornerback, Clemson. He can play press. He can play man. He can play zone. He can play damn near anything. And here's something that I don't get to say very often, especially with guys that went to a school as good as Clemson. He wasn't coached very well. And if you don't believe me, look at how many Clemson players have gone into the league and found a role that was nowhere near what they did at Clemson. I don't think Dabo Swinney's a very good coach, but I do think Nate Wiggins is a really good player. And with no Brent Venables, the defensive guys all seem to stagnate. This was going to be one of the best defensive draft classes in the history of college football. Venables leaves, takes the Oklahoma job, and everybody got stuck in quicksand. I think Nate Wiggins will blow it out at the combine. I think he's going to look really good in a pair of shorts, and that's going to get people to rewatch the tape, and they're going to figure out that this is the number 2 corner in this class. I know exactly what he is. I think he's a day one starter for Indianapolis, and that's what I'm looking for. This is a team that was on the periphery of the playoffs. I don't want a guy that I have to wait on. I want you to come in and be a contributor right away, and that's exactly what you would get from Nate Wiggins. 15 to the Indianapolis Colts. Number 16, Seattle Seahawks. This is a name that if you follow this channel, please click like and subscribe at the bottom there so you can see all of our draft miss coverage. You're going to hear this guy's name a lot because he was, until he shut it down, he was the best player in Mobile. Jackson Powers Johnson, center out of Oregon. And I'm sure somebody's going to say, but that's too high for a center. No, it's not, because this is a Gnarls Barkley class. At center specifically, there aren't as many guards as you would want them to be. Jackson Powers Johnson is a no-doubter. That's a day one starter, one of the highest-rated centers I've ever had, because I saw him be an absolute animal in Mobile, and I spent part of the trip home and part of the trip while I was down there looking at tape of him, and I realized, here's where I missed this. Bo Nix was so good that I didn't stare at Jackson Powers Johnson. I didn't really see what he was doing. I didn't see how much of this was at his behest. And I'm going to be honest with you, it kind of made me denigrate Bo Nix a little bit because I'm looking at the center going, he handles all of this. He is a center in the NFL to me. It is a huge position. I think he comes in as a just road grader, Frank Ragnow type of center. I'm not telling you he's going to be a top 3 guy in the league immediately, but I think he will be, I'd say, within a year. I have him ahead of John Michael Schmitz, who I loved last year. I have him ahead of Joe Tippmann, who I loved last year. This is a first-round pick, and you have officially gotten to that point where beauty's in the eye of the beholder. This is a position of real need for Seattle. I like Ola Oluwatimi from last year as well. He can play guard too. I'm starting to see why people didn't like him as much as I did, and it's just a lot of death by 1,000 paper cuts. We'll put it that way. Jackson Powers Johnson, center out of Oregon, at number 16 to the Seattle Seahawks. We're halfway through. This is a great time to click like and subscribe, and a great time for me to tell you we're brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Monster Brewing's The Nasty Beast. If you like Arnold Palmer's, you will love The Nasty Beast, available at a retailer near you. Ingles Supermarkets, low prices, love the savings, and ClarissaSellsWNC.com, your one-stop shop for all things real estate here in Western North Carolina. Number 17, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I am almost positive they're going to lose Calvin Ridley, and one thing they're really going to need is a wide receiver. Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. This kid got overshadowed by how good Malik Nabers was, but I think we're doing him a disservice. because he was every bit as good, even if he's not every bit the NFL prospect. I don't think he's going in the top 10. I did at a time. Then I realized how many of them there were. 6'4", 205, ideal outside receiver build. And I'm looking at what Jacksonville has. Even if you were to bring back Calvin Ridley, which I don't think they're going to, I would still like this pick because now you have Christian Kirk, you have Calvin Ridley. They both can operate out of the slot or on the outside, and I have a no-doubt big-bodied X in Brian Thomas. I love this kid. I think he is a phenomenal deep threat. He needs to work on the route tree because he wasn't asked to run an NFL route tree. And so I don't know that he isn't going to – it may take half a year with him. But you get him in early with Trevor Lawrence. They work together. I think this is the no-doubt long-term fit as your X with Christian Kirk. And whatever you decide to do with the other position, it was really obvious to me at times last year that Jacksonville needed a bigger body receiver because they didn't trust anybody in the red zone. That's why they bogged down there so often. He didn't trust anybody. That's the reason Evan Ingram got peppered with targets because, and I never thought I would say this out loud, he trusted Evan Ingram's hands more than he trusted Calvin Ridley and even at times Christian Kirk if it was more than 25 or less than 25 yards downfield. I love this fit. I think it'd be a great pick. Brian Thomas Jr., number 17 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. 18, Cincinnati Bengals, and this is a guy where I am going to speak out both sides of my mouth because I do not love the player, but damn, I love this fit. JC Latham, offensive tackle, Alabama. I need to keep Joe Burrow upright. I know you invested in Orlando Brown. I know you've got Jonah Williams. He's a guard. You're so close. You moved him from the left side. Now just slide him to the inside, and you'll have the solution that we've been looking for forever. Here I have you taking a right tackle, JC Latham out of Alabama. This dude is a friggin' house. 6'6", 360. I think he comes in as a really good pass blocker right now, really good run blocker right now. I just don't think he's going to get any better. And there are a lot of places that would worry me. Cincinnati ain't one of them. You're in a Super Bowl window. I want a guy that can come in and play right now. And JC Latham can come in and play right now. There are some people that think he's a guard because he is a house. The problem is his arms are a little too long for that. So I would ideally want to put him on the right side, slide Jonah Williams into guard, or whatever you want to do with Cordell Volson if you decide it's time to move on from Jonah Williams. It's totally up to you. Whatever you do, I think JC Latham would be a bookend on the right side and help you keep Joe Burrow upright and off the injury report. JC Latham right here, 18 to the Cincinnati Bengals. 19, the Los Angeles Rams, and this is a pick that's going to get a lot of people to either call me an idiot or call me a visionary. I don't know which one, and I don't really care because once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. There are 3 quarterbacks. All right, we've been over that. Caleb Williams, Drake Maye, Jayden Daniels. There are 2 more that I don't really believe in, and I could not take in the first round unless it was at the very, very end and I got that 5th-year option. Then there's the one that to me is right in the middle because I've seen high-level upside, but he's going to need some time because he just wasn't asked to do much. Well, the good thing is with the Rams, I have time. And I'm a really good drafting team, so I can take this risk because I have capital later on in the draft where I can just crush value like I did last year with Kobe Turner. JJ McCarthy, quarterback out of Michigan. This kid is super mobile. They have him listed at a 4.6 40, which I'm going to be honest with you, I think he's faster than that. He's got a rope, too. He just wasn't asked to do much. It was a run-first team. Roman Wilson should have been better than he was based off what I saw in Mobile. But this goes to the offense that Jim Harbaugh ran with Michigan. I feel like McCarthy is a guy that needs to sit for a year, sit for 2 years possibly, and you can do that behind Stafford. Then when the contract runs out, you've got the ready-made heir apparent that's been in the building with Sean McVay, with Mike LaFleur, learning the offense, and you can just slide right into that. And God forbid if something happened to Stafford, then you could learn on the fly. I love this selection for the Rams. There is no way he lasts out of the first round because teams are so desperate for quarterback, and that is the one unknown. He is a wild card. And with Sean McVay, I absolutely love him. You put him with a team that kills quarterbacks, and I'm not going to love him so much. This is a weird evaluation. He's one of the weirdest players in this draft. I really like the upside, and I think there's a lot more there. You just have to get him to the right spot. good deep ball arm, needs to work on some accuracy things from time to time. It was just inconsistent, but I think long-term he's a starter in this league. 19 to the LA Rams, JJ McCarthy. Number 20, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this may be the most Pittsburgh Steeler pick you'll ever see in your life. I like what you got from Joey Porter Jr. last year, but you need another one. Patrick Peterson got beat like a kettle drum, and it happened quite often. So I'm going to take my number one corner that is left. Some people see him as a safety. I don't really understand that. Cooper DeJean, cornerback, Iowa. 6'1", 207. He's one of the best kick returners in this class. He's just really dynamic. He can do a little bit of everything, and he's a duct tape piece, for the Pittsburgh Steelers that fits what they do. I think he would be a really nice fit on the outside with Joey Porter Jr. and would give you a nice long-term set of corners that could hold up against the just absolute gauntlet of receivers that you get in the AFC North. I love this kid. I think he comes in as an elite punt returner right away. He's a good tackler, really willing against the run. Technique leaves a bit to be desired sometimes. It's just inconsistent, but the good is really, really good. I think he would come into Pittsburgh and be an immediate day one starter. Cooper DeJean, cornerback, Iowa. One more pick before we take a quick commercial break. It's the Miami Dolphins, and this is a guy that we talked about a lot in Mobile. Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle, Oklahoma. Miami has one of the most interesting offensive line situations I think I've ever seen. Because when Terrion Armstead's on the field, this team's pretty good. When he's off the field, they're pretty bad. And Tyler Guyton showed me in Mobile, for me, he is the fourth best offensive lineman in this class. He is the thinnest 6'7", 330-pound man I have ever seen in my life. He was standing right in front of me. And the first thing I said was, damn, he is thin. I looked at the sheet and went, holy shit. That dude is a friggin' Terminator. Because at that size, you should not be that mobile and that thin. Is it going to take him a year? No doubt. I love the idea of him learning behind Terrion Armstead, possibly even on the right side. Could start as a swing tackle where you just kind of let him develop to keep his former Oklahoma teammate Anton Harrison. What happened with him last year, first half of the season, he didn't look like he belonged in the league. Second half of the season, he was markedly improved. Not saying that it was perfect, but he was definitely better. Tyler Guyton, to me, great fit. He is going to have to learn to run block because he was just not asked to do that much at Oklahoma. And there were times that it didn't look particularly good when he did. Needs to improve the technique, really needs to learn how to use his body. I saw a lot of that in Mobile, and it gave me a great feeling of this kid can make it happen in the league. 21 of the Miami Dolphins, Tyler Guyton. It's a great time to click like and subscribe so you can see all of our Draftmas content all Draftmas season long. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll come back with the last 11 picks of the 2024 Post-Senior Bowl mock draft from me, ESPN Radio Asheville's Jeremy Greene, and thesportsocracy.com. We're back with the last 11 picks of the 2024 Post-Senior Bowl mock draft brought to you by ESPN Radio Asheville and thesportsocracy.com in partner with DraftKings Sportsbook, Ingles Markets, Monster Brewings, The Nasty Beast, and Clarissa Sells WNC.com. We're to number 22, the Philadelphia Eagles, and they take one of my favorite players in this class. This is what Philadelphia does. It's what the Baltimore Ravens do. There's a reason that a lot of these guys have worked for both teams that work in the front office. Laiatu Latu, edge rusher out of UCLA. Look, this kid medically retired. The medical is going to be huge on him. 6'4", 260. He was an absolute animal of a pass rusher in Mobile. Shut it down after 2 days, as well he should. The medical at the combine is going to be so crucial, but he's the most natural pass rusher in this class, and I think he'd be a tremendous fit for Philadelphia. That's how teams like this stay so good, because they can just sit in the last 10 picks of each first round, and they take the guy that all of you lessers couldn't take because you had to have a tackle or you had to have a quarterback or you had to have a wide receiver. So this guy falls right in their lap. I love him. I think he's going to be great in this league. I've just got my fingers crossed that everything clears with the medical. Laiatu Latu, number 22 to the Philadelphia Eagles, edge rusher out of UCLA. Number 23, the Houston Texans, and this is a pairing that I absolutely love because I love how this guy would fit with their first rounder last year. Will Anderson has already shown he's going to be an absolute dog in this league, and he already is. Jer'Zhan Newton, defensive tackle out of Illinois. This is a kid that there's been some really conflicting analysis on of where he plays. Some people think he's a 3-4 defensive end. Some people think he is better suited in a 4-3. I don't really know. I think he can do either one. Here's what I know. He's going to come in and be pretty good against the run immediately. He's going to give you a great push on the interior against the pass immediately. And those are things I need if I'm Houston. I need more pass rush. I always need more pass rush. I need more young players. And I look at this team. I love your receiving core. I love your quarterback. And I love your offensive line. Those things set, I can start taking luxury pieces. Jer'Zhan Newton, he might be a luxury piece, but he's a hell of a luxury piece because defensive tackle in this class is not great. And to me, he is the best natural defensive tackle in the class. There are other guys that can play 0 technique. There are other guys that can play 5 technique. In terms of just being really scheme versatile, Jer'Zhan Newton's the best defensive tackle in the class. And I give him here, number 23 to the Houston Texans. Number 24, the Dallas Cowboys. This is a long-term projection play because I'm looking at this line going, you know what, Tyron Smith's gotten hurt every single year. And you're so good with him, and then things just drop off a cliff without him. I like Tyler Smith as well. I don't necessarily think he's a left tackle. I think he's better suited on the right side or at guard. There is a player, he's going to need a little bit of work, and he's going to need a little bit of time because he doesn't have a lot of experience under his belt. 6'7", 340 out of the University of Georgia, Amarius Mims. He reminds me a lot of Broderick Jones from last year, and I kind of like the fit of Broderick Jones with the Dallas Cowboys. He's so raw, but the good, which I have not seen a ton of because he didn't play that much. Over the course of his entire time at Georgia, he played just over 700 snaps. So this is a bit of a projection, and you're going to have to trust. I looked at several other positions here, but I just kept coming back to Amarius Mims going, you know what? I can depot him on the right side. I can work with him, and that's my left tackle of the future, which is so important with how much instability there's been on that line, where Tyron Smith gets hurt, and then you have to rearrange the deck chairs, and it just doesn't end all that well. I love Amarius Mims. I think he will be a really good player 2 years from now. You just have to understand that it's not going to be immediate satisfaction. Number 24, Dallas Cowboys, Amarius Mims. Conversely, a tackle that is ready right now, but I don't know how much better he's going to get. Goes to the Green Bay Packers. David Bakhtiari, I just can't trust it anymore. Even if he wants to come back, I don't really care. I can't see myself counting on you for another year to be the blindside protector. So I'm going to go get one. And it's one of my favorite in this class, Jordan Morgan, left tackle out of Arizona. I didn't hear enough talk about him over the week in Mobile. He was not there, and I get that. But I was shocked that nobody was talking about him because I love the tape. He was playing on a team where he was the best player on the team, and it wasn't all that close. And I saw natural pass blocker. I saw immediate day one starter on the left side, and I think he's an ideal fit for Green Bay. Replaces Bakhtiari off the jump. I could trust him to play right now. Even if he doesn't get much better, I think he's an 8 to 10 year starter in this league. Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle, Arizona. That takes us to number 26, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Great chance they're going to lose Mike Evans, and great chance they're going to re-sign Baker Mayfield. So I need a bigger-bodied receiver. Troy Franklin, wide receiver out of Oregon. I think he kind of got forgotten in the Senior Bowl slide. 6'3", a buck 90, but there's a lot of really good tape on him. He's the immediate Mike Evans replacement for me. You have him, you have Chris Godwin, you have Trey Palmer, who you took last year, you got Raheem Jarrett. You add that to Cade Otton and Rachaad White, that's enough weapons for Baker Mayfield to succeed. Would I like to add a piece to the offensive line? I would. There's not one that I feel great about here. By comparison, I would like to add to the defense, but I think Troy Franklin's the best fit on the board. I will look to address those things later in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 3-round mock draft, which I'll be putting out later this week. Number 26, Troy Franklin, wide receiver out of Oregon. That takes us to number 27. Only 6 picks left. 27 is the Arizona Cardinals. And I knew what position I wanted. I just wasn't 100% sure which player I wanted. And I know some people, Red Sea, one of our resident Arizona Cardinal fans that listens to our lives every weekday at noon right here Eastern time, right here on YouTube and the iHeartRadio app. He wants T'Vondre Sweat. I get it. I don't think T'Vondre Sweat can go in the first round no matter how much I like him because he is only a two-down player. And I can't take him over. I can't take him. I don't want to say that way. I could take him over the player I'm getting ready to say. I shouldn't take him over the player that I'm getting ready to say for the Arizona Cardinals. It's Byron Murphy II. I just think his upside is almost equivalent, and his floor is way better. There is a possibility that T'Vondre Sweat eats himself out of the league, and that scares me to death. I can't have a miss like that if I'm Arizona. Yes, it's a great luxury, and I'm going to give that luxury to a team that I think is pretty good with a new coach in the 3-round mock drafts. I can't do that here, especially with Byron Murphy on the board, who I think comes in, and I don't have any of those fears. He's 6'1", 308. He's very scheme flexible. I could see him playing damn near any technique on the interior of the line in the NFL, and this is just a piece. You know how Jonathan Gannon works, and to me, this is his Fletcher Cox. This is the guy he's going to build the defense around for the long term, and he's safe. I know fans don't like hearing that term, but he is safe. Apologies there for having to audible the way I wanted to say that because that was going to sound like I was throwing shade at T'Vondre Sweat, which there will be none of that taken here because this is the house of the T'Vondre Sweat fan club. But I love Byron Murphy too. Great fit right there at 27 to the Arizona Cardinals. Number 28, the Buffalo Bills. We fix a problem because, well, Gabriel Davis just never became that wide receiver you were looking for him to be. No matter what happens with Stephon Diggs, you're going to need at least one wide receiver, and you take one of my favorite in the class. Keon Coleman, wide receiver, Florida State. If it wasn't the deepest receiver class I'd ever seen, we'd be talking about him in the top 15. And I did for a while. And then I just figured out there's no path that he's going that high. 6'4", 215. He's not going to run as fast, I don't believe, as he is. Some people had some issues with his ability to separate. I can tell you as a guy that watched every single snap he took at Florida State, he did not have a problem separating. He was the punt returner, and he was absolutely dynamic. He was on the All-ACC team 3 times, as a receiver, as a returner, and as a utility guy. Keon Coleman is a dog. And a good, smart team is going to add him to their roster, and he's going to be a solid to fantastic 2 for the long term. And that's what they get here with the Buffalo Bills. Big-bodied receiver to put on the opposite side of Stephon Diggs and replace Gabriel Davis, who is a free agent. Number 29, the Detroit Lions. Darius Robinson, defensive lineman, Missouri. We talked about this guy a lot in Mobile. He showed out and showed up. And I think he's so scheme versatile that he is the exact kind of player that Dan Campbell is looking for the long term to build out that defense, get pressure up front. I don't think there's anything he can't do. He just needs to be worked with. The raw of what I saw in Mobile is enough that the kid could be a Pro Bowler. The thing I'm afraid of is that I'm afraid he's going to go higher than this, and the expectation is going to be that he can come in and be that Pro Bowler right away. And that's not how I see him. He was on my 2024 All-Senior Bowl team. I think he is so scheme versatile and so talented. You just have to be a little bit patient. Number 29 right there, the Detroit Lions, Darius Robinson. Baltimore Ravens do that thing that they do. They sit back and wait for players that have fallen. This one to me is an ideal fit on the opposite side of Marlon Humphrey. It's Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback out of Alabama. 6'1", 195. I feel like he is a victim of the expectation because we've known who he was since he was a freshman at Alabama, and he never hit what we were expecting him to be, which was that no-doubt lockdown corner that was going to go in the top 10. We just didn't see that often enough, but he's good at everything. He's a good tackler. He's really good in coverage. You just have to be careful where you put him, and I'm looking at Baltimore with Zach Orr coming in as the first-time defensive coordinator. I think he would be an ideal fit for Baltimore, and I don't really see a way that he falls into the second round. I've had people tell me he's going to. I can't see a path of it. The good is too good, and the good is too consistently on tape. Kool-Aid McKinstry, number 30, to the Baltimore Ravens. Final two picks here, your Super Bowl teams who will play this weekend to decide who is your Super Bowl champion. The server picked for me. Kansas City's picking at 31. I think they're going to win, but that's beside the point. A.D. Mitchell to the Kansas City Chiefs. Big-bodied receiver. He had one drop all year. And that's the number one thing that Kansas City Chief fans are going to ask me about this kid. He's got really good hands. He had Xavier Worthy on the other side, which helps, but he would have Rashee Rice on the opposite side in Kansas City, and I think it's just fine. This is where we get into a slew of receivers who the grade is really similar, so it becomes beauty's in the eye of the beholder. What are you looking for? In Kansas City, I want a big-bodied receiver that can win consistently, and that's exactly what you would get out of A.D. Mitchell. I saw it at Georgia. I saw it at Texas. The stats don't jump off the page, but you also have to look at the talent that was around him in both situations, and I think that's why. Would be a new safety blanket for Pat Mahomes at number 31. And finally, final pick in the first round of the 2024 post-Senior Bowl mock draft, San Francisco 49ers, but we're making a deal. The Minnesota Vikings have number 42, and I'm going to take 42. I don't know if this would be a combination of future picks. San Francisco has a lot of picks this year. Losing that fifth-round option is just not that big a deal to me because I need as many shots at the dartboard as I can get. So Minnesota gives up that pick in the 40s. They give up either a 2 and a 4 or next year's 1 in 2025 to San Francisco to move up here and take Bo Nix, quarterback, Oregon. I told you I didn't like him at 11. I never said anything about not liking him at 32. He is an older player. I would like a year of him to learn. I would like a year of him to sit behind Kirk Cousins. For me, I'm going to bring back Kirk on a 1-year deal and just tell him, look, this is the swan song. If you want to go win a ring somewhere, try to win a ring somewhere else in a year, more power to you. But we'll bring you back for a year. We'll ultimately turn this over to Bo Nix. He's super accurate. Got some kind of interesting footwork. Was really old school footwork that I hadn't seen from a quarterback in quite some time. I don't think he's a star. I also don't think he's a bum. And I think in Kevin O'Connell's offense, he could be really good down the line. That's really the only fit, though, that I see immediately that I'm going to like now and the future. There it is, 32 picks in the books. We got 32 team-by-team 3-round mock drafts coming out next week. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. In the comments, ask me any question you want about your team. I will answer those moving forward. And starting next week, after the Super Bowl, Mondays all at 3 o'clock. Monday at 3 o'clock. Good Lord, first day speaking English. This Monday, 3 o'clock after our ESPN live show, we will be doing a live draft show. 3 o'clock every single day. 30 minutes, your questions, talking about nothing but the NFL draft. I'm Jeremy Greene of ESPN Radio Asheville and thesportsocracy.com. Thank you for checking us out. Be sure to like and subscribe to see all of our content all Draftmas season long. Drafty Claus is coming. What's he bringing to your team? I'll see you next time.